Public communication, you're welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinion of all groups. Number 4 is written requests. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will normally be allotted 5 minutes to speak. And I believe we do have a written request from Mr. Gary Stuckey from Local 1. Just turn the microphone on and state your name and address for the record. There you go.
Gary Stuckey, Executive Director with Public Employees Union Local 1. My address is 718 Bridge Street, Yuba City. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, my purpose for appearing this evening is not to negotiate with you, but rather to express what I believe to be the representation position of the membership I represent. Local 1 and your employees desire to have a good, positive, constructive working relationship with the elected leadership and the administration of the city. I appear before you this evening because, from our perspective, the position the council has taken or the city has taken in our negotiations seems to dismiss and not recall the sacrifices that your employees have made. So I want to take a moment to revisit that. We talk about a 3-year furlough. In fact, the furloughs were first put in place in 2009 with the 5% furlough. That was continued for a second year, and then in 2011, the parties met again and agreed upon a further furlough, increasing it to 10% for another 3 years. So your employees have actually been under furlough for 5 years. Taking an average salary for the group, which I determined based upon the salary schedule, middle step, of $3,832. That represents a wage loss to each employee on the average of about $18,000. Also during that period of time, there were scheduled 2 salary increases. As it turned out, it was based upon the California CPI, all state, all urban consumers. The employees would have received a 2% increase in 2009 and 2010. The employees never received those increases. The wage loss from not taking those increases represents another $8,000. So on the average, each employee has donated during this rather difficult financial time approximately $26,000. Now, some employees have not suffered that loss because of overtime. But the fact of the matter is, because of the furloughs, many employees, or many of them, I say, those primarily in the water treatment plant and in the south plant, and having to work overtime to cover that 24/7 operation, have lost time with their family. This is an important factor to having a positive, good relationship with family members. So it's not just the economics. But in addition to that, during this period of time, the CPI has actually been approximately 7% from 2008 to 2013. Depending upon month of the year that you pick, it can vary. But on the annualized basis, I figure it to be about 7%. If you take that 2008 salary of $3,832 and apply the furlough, that reduces the salary to approximately $3,449. But if you apply the inflation, that salary is reduced again to $3,190. So the employees have had a diminished wage because of inflation and their purchasing power, and have been impacted by the loss of wages due to furlough and the loss of those salary increases. I think it's also important to note that the survey that the city completed and has been a part of the discussions that we've had present a skewed perspective because the salary data that was used for Yuba City, in fact, uses that full salary with no reduction. If you apply the furloughs and apply the fact that there's a loss of income, what you really have is out of the 24 classifications that you had sufficient data, 14 are more than 10% below the median salary. During the same period of time, the city's year-ending balance and beginning balance increased from $3.8 million to over $8 million. This is not a city on the verge of bankruptcy. Quite honestly, and I think each of you know it, the city is rather well positioned financially. It is time to get back to your employees and time to be fair and equitable. I don't believe that the employees are seeking unreasonable increases. The 12% that we have on the table is obviously a starting position, but it represents that combination of the loss of income and inflation. So I respectfully request that you give consideration to these thoughts and that you give direction to your negotiator to return. I believe that if we work together, we can come up with a reasonable contract, but the position that the city has currently taken is not acceptable to employees and will lead to us having to go to mediation, perhaps fact-finding, and other actions. I don't think that's a productive use of our time. So I'm hopeful that we can begin a meaningful process of negotiations towards a contract that works for both of us. I've prepared some documents. I'll give them to the city clerk. There's one for each of you, one for the city manager, and one for the HR director. Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stuckey. I do, again, thank you for coming here and speaking on behalf of the employees that you represent. And I do want to let all the employees know that we, as a council, we do appreciate each and every one of you, all your hard work that you've continued to do for many years. And this last few years have been a tough and a challenging years for the city. Been very uncharted waters for many of us as we sat here and looked at our budgets. We saw our revenues falling. We saw our expenditures increasing. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is definitely something that we're definitely not going to do, is negotiate within the public here, nor is this the place to do it. But earlier in the year, one of the things that we as a council gave direction to was we needed to take a look at balancing our budget. And that is without continuing to kick the can down the curb, no longer keep borrowing money from our savings account to balance our budget. And that's something that we've given direction to continue to do, coming up with a plan instead of trying to balance the budget in 1 year. I try to balance the budget over the next 2, 3, 4 years and taking a look at that. The other thing was balancing the budget without the furloughs, taking the furloughs back. The furloughs were put in place with a 5 and another 5, but time off was given for that as well. So it's not just taking the furloughs and not getting nothing in return there. The other things that hit all cities, large, small, whatever it may be, is the increase of PERS. And just within the last 3 or 4 months, we've been hit with increases 3 times that have not even been budgeted by the time we started negotiations. Healthcare costs are costs that are skyrocketing coming across. So these are issues that have always been here on the table from day number 1. They're nothing new within the council. One of the things that we've said from day number 1 is, you know what, we want you guys to see those numbers. We're going to be transparent. There's nothing hidden about this as far as we want to do it. I don't know if any of you guys saw this or not, but the Chico City Council was written up by the grand jury for similar stuff, not being able to balance their budget in a timely manner, trying to kick the can down the curbs. And so for us, like I said, we truly value all of you employees. But as a council, we're also got to make sure that we are able to balance these budgets because we represent the entire city of Yuba City as well. And we look forward to a continued and progress on the dialogues that continue on. So thank you guys very much for that.